going on now. It's the Memorial Day sale at Bray & Scarf. Now's your last chance to beat upcoming manufacturer price increases. Save up to 35% on select GE Profile and Cafe appliances. And save on in-stock GE refrigerators and best-selling washers and dryers. Plus, get next-day delivery, online delivery day tracking, and delivery day installation. Visit any of Bray & Scarf's convenient locations or shop online at brayandscarf.com, where it doesn't cost more to get more.
With McValue at McDonald's, you don't just get deals on the drinks. You get deals on McDonald's drinks. So when you're breaking a sweat, embrace the chill without breaking the bank. And when your crew is running on empty, keep your wallet full while refreshing the squad.
Ace the vibe check with drinks like lemonade, frozen Fanta Blue Raspberry, or any size drink for just $1.49. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
A warning to our listeners, this episode includes description and discussion of sexual assault and violence. Please take care.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
Week 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking and racketeering trial is well underway at the Manhattan courthouse. And as the world watches the unraveling of an identity of who we thought the rap megastar was, we're now coming to terms of life behind closed doors for, again, who the world thought of as one of the hottest power couples of the 2010s. Countless bottles of baby oil, various drugs, weapons, lingerie, photos of text messages, just a few of the several pieces of evidence being brought before the 8-men, 4-women jury. So far, a handful of witnesses have taken the stand, including former assistants, security guards, friends, experts, and of course, the star witness herself, Cassie Ventura. And as the details continue to pour out, those tuning in, including myself, can only wonder, what else is there to come? I'm Maria Kestane, and today on The Big Story, I'm talking to award-winning journalist from 1010 Wins, New York, Juliet Papa, on where the Sean Diddy Combs trial stands and what the tens of millions are watching for as it all plays out. Juliet, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure.
So what we're hearing day after day out of the courtroom for this trial are facts that just continue to shock and discomfort those who are either, following along every day or those who are simply just reading the headlines. Let's get the facts straight. What exactly are the charges Sean Combs is on trial for?
Sean Combs is facing federal charges, federal indictment, carries a significant prison time. He's accused of racketeering, which means that he used his business as a criminal enterprise to foster other alleged crimes, including sex trafficking. And that is the major issue here. We heard from his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, last week when they traveled from state to state and participated in these alleged freak-offs. She said she was abused by him in these freak-offs. And of course, there were the escorts that were participating in this as well, who also traveled from state to state. So he faces possibly life in prison if he's convicted. It is a 5-count indictment. But many of these counts are incorporated in that big racketeering enterprise charge.
Right. And I think it's important to note that this story doesn't just begin in September of 2024 when he was charged, or even March of that year when his Miami home was raided by Homeland Security. The details that are coming out of this trial paint more than a decade's worth of abuse, exploitation, hush money, corruption. We know that Diddy and Cassie Ventura began dating in 2007 up until 2018, and then things started to unravel publicly. Can you give us a bit of a timeline of when the facts of this case start from up until this point?
Well, what happened was he hadn't been charged until a year ago when he was arrested. So Cassie Ventura, filed a civil lawsuit in 2023. This bombshell lawsuit accused him of sexually abusing her for years. And we're talking about an 11-year relationship. This became very public. There was the infamous tape from the Intercontinental Hotel where you see Cassie Ventura coming out of a hotel room and then getting dragged down the hallway by Diddy Combs, by her hair, or actually by the hood of her hoodie. She was trying to leave that hotel room and he's thrown something at her. It was a vase that was in the hotel hallway. That lawsuit was settled the next day for $20 million. And by the way, Cassie Ventura, that number was just revealed during this testimony of hers last week. She also acknowledged that the Intercontinental Hotel was expected to pay her another $10 million in a separate settlement. As a result of that lawsuit, an investigation began, and that's when you started hearing about the raids on his home in Miami and then the raid on his home in Los Angeles. And just yesterday and part of today, we heard about some of the items that were seized from the house. Some 80 to 90 agents raided that house in Miami on Star Island back in March of 2024. And there was a host of items that the agent testifying today was going over and admitting as evidence in the case.
Right. So you kind of touched on that evidence and some of the witnesses. You've been at the Manhattan courthouse following along day after day. What kind of things are you hearing from lawyers and witnesses? What kind of evidence is being brought in to tell this story?
Well, everything from personal accounts from people. So you did have Cassie Ventura, who was a singer, a rhythm and blues singer in her own right, trying to get a record deal. She latches on to Sean Combs. He signs her for a 10-year record deal. So we heard from her for 4 days. We're also hearing from other assistants who have testified that they witnessed the abuse and they witnessed the violence against Cassie Ventura. A woman, Dawn Richard, testified that while she was working for Sean Combs' organization, that he threw a frying pan at Ventura when she was trying to cook breakfast for him. And he complained something about like the eggs weren't ready fast enough. So there are other people who were saying that they were witnessing the violence. One instance in a car when he pushed her head against the glass, window. And then there were people also, some of these escorts, 2 escorts testified so far, saying that they never saw Cassie Ventura under duress during these so-called freak-offs, that she never complained. She never said she didn't want to be there. She wanted to please. She was claiming that Combs was her husband and she wanted to do something to please him. So you're getting, basically 2 sides to the story that this jury is going to have to parse through.
Yeah, so you mentioned the freak-offs. We can't tell this story without mentioning the freak-offs. What exactly is a freak-off? What takes place in those encounters? Those have been making headlines every day. What does that refer to in this case?
Yeah, this was a term that Sean Combs used to explain and describe the sexual encounters that he would schedule, or actually, he told Cassie Ventura to schedule them. And these are the ones with her. Don't know if other people were involved at other times, but this is what she testified to. And that an escort or an exotic dancer, a male, would be hired. A hotel room would be prepared by his executive assistants or his personal assistants. And then this would be sometimes a brief sexual encounter where Combs would watch the escort and Cassie Ventura have sex. He would sort of direct the action, and there would include copious amounts of baby oil, because the word he used is he wanted, or that she said he used, he wanted her to glisten. So it was sort of this whole ritualistic sexual encounter. Sometimes, though, these went on for hours at a time, into the next morning. Sometimes they would even last for days. And it appeared that the way this worked is the escort came, Diddy would watch and often tape the experience, the encounter. give some directions on what to do. And then Ventura would go into the bedroom with Combs, and they would have their own private sexual encounter. And she'd come back out, and maybe it would continue. I guess it all depended on, how long they wanted to do this, who else was there, et cetera, et cetera. But that was basically the encounter. A lot of drugs were taken during this time. Everybody was taking drugs to enhance performances. And Ventura testified, and so did the escorts, that the room would often be a mess because there was baby oil everywhere. There were sheets and towels everywhere covering furniture. There were candles. There was some other lighting, and there was a video camera.
And I just need to know, for my own curiosity, the term freak off, it's been used almost every day in this trial. And you've been there, at
Right.
the Manhattan courthouse.
Right.
I need to know, what is the sentiment like, or what was it like when the term freak off was originally used and things were being described? What was the mood in the courtroom, from the jury, from the judge, from people watching, when these encounters were being described?
The jury's been very straight-faced, and I didn't see too many oohs and ahs. I am sometimes in an overflow room because the courtroom is very restricted. And I will tell you, in that overflow room, it is almost like an interactive experience because members of the public are there, members of the press are there. So the judge isn't there. We're watching the live video of the trial, correct? So you will see everything that is going on there, but obviously you don't have to sit there and be quiet. So some people are yelling at the screen, some people are oohing and eyeing, some people are gasping. So these are the reactions that you're getting from members of the public who are hearing some of this. Sometimes people are laughing, depending on the situation or the bizarreness of the situation, or the anger that somebody says that Diddy, expressed. All kinds of reactions to this. And this is from people, the members of the public, who are coming just to watch this trial. They are not getting paid to be there. Some of them go out and do their own podcasts. I see them setting up their phones outside, on their tripods, and they're putting out what they think of what's going on. But it's been sort of fascinating to even watch some of this as it happens. Like I said, it's more like an interactive experience with the trial and the monitor as the trial is underway.
With McValue at McDonald's, you don't just get deals on the drinks. You get deals on McDonald's drinks. So when you're breaking a sweat, embrace the chill without breaking the bank. And when your crew is running on empty, keep your wallet full while refreshing the squad.
Ace the vibe check with drinks like lemonade, frozen Fanta Blue Raspberry, or any size drink for just $1.49. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
I think it's important to kind of touch on the fact that all this evidence and all these recounts from Cassie, although they're jarring, it isn't necessarily what the prosecutors are trying to get Diddy in jail for. His defense has repeatedly said, look, this isn't a domestic abuse case. This is about racketeering and sex trafficking charges. And that, that's the picture that his lawyers are trying to pick out from Cassie's testimony, that these freak-offs were just willing, kinky encounters that she consented to during her relationship with Diddy. And that's not necessarily his problem at this point.
Yeah, that it is a very narrow focus. Their opening arguments for the defense were very effective. They're trying to plant seeds of reasonable doubt here. And if you try to simplify the case and saying it is just a sex abuse case or a domestic violence case, okay, maybe you sell some jurors on it. But, we're only a few witnesses in here. We still haven't heard about the business aspect of some of this. Yes, we are hearing about some of the employees and how they were involved in making arrangements at the hotels. We've had about 3 or 4, two personal assistants and others that were involved in making these arrangements at hotels or escorts and things of that nature. So does that rise to the level of racketeering as a criminal enterprise? The prosecutors have yet to make that case. But like I said, this is still early on in testimony.
I also just think, from a human point of view, obviously Cassie being the key witness, to see her take the stand as she's 8 months pregnant, she was actually only allowed to only be cross-examined for 1 week because the judge said, she was very pregnant. She could literally give birth at any point.
Right.
To see her having to relive and walk through what she calls the darkest time of her life and be questioned about it as she's just, sitting there pregnant. It's such a powerful vision, but in such a heartbreaking way.
Yes. And she was a good witness in the sense of answering every question. I mean, she clearly was uncomfortable. She is very pregnant. She's sitting in this chair. She was sort of trying to make herself as comfortable as possible, moving around quite often. But there was never a time where she said, "Oh, I can't go on," or "I need frequent breaks," or anything like that. She did break down only twice where she started to cry. And it was I can't recall the exact specific moment, but it was more of a time when she sort of discussed, the loss of a relationship and how, like, he was breaking her heart because she couldn't get through to him beyond just the sex. She wanted more from him in the relationship, and she just felt it was just about the sex.
Yeah, and she even mentioned at one point, that, it was like a job to her. It was a second job to her, and then I think the defense said, "Oh, what's the second job?" And she said, being a sex worker. And then, it was
Right.
completely struck down. What was that moment like?
Yeah, that kind of came out of I felt to me almost like, oh, she reminded herself, yeah, I have to describe myself as a sex worker, because that goes towards some of the charges, forced labor, was one of the charges, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction of justice, et cetera, et cetera. So, it almost seemed that didn't seem to be her narrative, but she did come out with that. It was a little jarring when you heard it because it sort of completely disassociated her from the relationship she had with him.
Yeah, and the judge, even said to the jury, like, pretend like she never said that, but you can't, like, unring the bell. Once it's said, it's said. What,
Yes.
regardless of how that affects the jury.
Yep, it's out there, and you can't sort of get it back, and you could disregard, but, let's say in deliberations, somebody might bring it up, and then somebody will have to say, "No, you can't consider that," But you're right, it's out there.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of want to touch on when Diddy was originally charged back in September of last year. Online, photos started to kind of pour out of him being pictured with other high profile celebrities, such as Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kanye West, Justin Bieber. And with that, comes all the conspiracy theories. And I just want to, I'm curious to know what kind of weight, if any, do you think will come with being associated with Diddy now? Do you think these charges and this trial will have an impact, or is it just kind of the reality of Hollywood?
Well, this aspect of the music industry, everybody wants to be a tough guy, and we just heard testimony about guns in his house, and there was an instance where one of his personal assistants talked about um, they went to a diner in LA and they saw Suge Knight, and then all of a sudden, they had a few words with Suge Knight, pleasantries because it was the personal assistant and one of Combs's bodyguards. Then all of a sudden, they saw 4 black SUVs in the parking lot and a gun exchanging hands. And then they got out of there and they went back to Combs's house, and he loaded up and had 3 guns on his lap, and they went back to the parking lot. So there was going to be some kind of showdown, but the other SUVs disappeared. Scary stuff that you're hearing. So on some level, everybody wants to be tough. On another level, when it comes to reality, nobody wants to damage their careers. So I don't see these big celebrities coming out here to support Diddy. These are serious allegations. This is heavy duty. It's a heavy duty indictment that could put him away for a long time. And He's been in prison, don't forget. He has been in prison, in a federal prison. That is not fun. That is just a shocking departure from, his everyday lifestyle of jetting here, jetting there, dinners in the best places, staying in the best hotels. I don't know how this all has affected his business, but I don't know that anybody wants to be, sitting here in court supporting him.
Has there been any, like at the courthouse or outside, has there been any sort of support for his side at all?
Oh, yeah, his family. Oh, his mother is here quite often, almost every day. And I think she's in her 80s, but she comes, she's driven up, I believe in a van, and with some of his children come here as well. And they're teens and up, I think his youngest maybe, in their teens and older. And they've been here very often. I think he has 7 children, and some come for a time, maybe all of them show up once in a while, but in one shape, or form, some family members are here for him.
And you mentioned his children. He has a few daughters, and they are there. What do you think, in your opinion, this trial and in hearing all these details come out, what do you think that's going to do to them, hearing this about their dad?
Who knows? You have to wonder what he has said to them about all of this, how it's been addressed in the family, if he never said anything, or, how he explained this. And look, he's pleaded not guilty. He could say this is all lies. This is all about money. People want to collect money because, there are many other civil lawsuits filed against him from various people, other women who said they did this he did this to them. This woman, Dawn Richard, who worked for the company, also filed a civil suit, said she was working in an abusive, hostile work environment. So a lot of lawsuits there. And I don't know, he paid off Cassie Ventura to the tune of $20 million. I don't know that he paid other people off. I think in her case, the witness, Dawn Richard, somebody, I think it was her, received $30,000 via Cassie Ventura, but it was coming from Combs, right?
I think it was for that incident when I think she saw that Combs hit her with the frying pan. I think, yeah,
right.
And I think that she was paid out
Right.
for hush money there.
Right, correct. So, that's been probably going on in one way, shape, or form, and we don't know to what extent.
Mm-hmm. Well, Juliet, we are, well into week 2 of the trial. What do you think we can expect to see, or who can we expect to hear from going into week 3 and throughout the rest of it all?
Well, we're going to hear from Kid Cudi. He was the brief love interest of Cassie Ventura in 2011 when she and Diddy were on the outs. And that's when Diddy allegedly threatened Cudi via Ventura, saying, I'm going to blow up your car. And then said that he was going to expose sex tapes of her and then harm her, hire somebody, I guess, to do it, because he said, I'll be out of the country when that happens. And so he's going to be on the stand. They're going to be putting 5 other witnesses on. I didn't recognize necessarily who they are and what role they play. They did have a domestic violence expert testifying today about how victims of domestic violence, where they stay in relationships, how they through fear, intimidation, et cetera, so that was on, and the defense will counter with their own. So this is chugging right along. I'm sure we'll hear from other business entities related to Combs's companies, and we have 2 other female witnesses that female alleged victims, rather, that are supposed to be coming up as well.
Well, we'll be watching along right there with you. Juliet Papa, award-winning journalist from 1010 Wins, New York. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Okay, thank you.
That was The Big Story. You can send us feedback on this episode or any other episode by emailing us at hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca or leave a voicemail at 416-935-5935. You can find us on the Seeker app or on all your favorite podcast players. Please rate, review, follow, and share. I'm Maria Kestane. Thanks for listening.
With McValue at McDonald's, you don't just get deals on the drinks. You get deals on McDonald's drinks. So when you're breaking a sweat, embrace the chill without breaking the bank. And when your crew is running on empty, keep your wallet full while refreshing the squad.
Ace the vibe check with drinks like lemonade, frozen Fanta Blue Raspberry, or any size drink for just $1.49. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.